All right, I think we can probably go ahead and get started. Thanks, Felix, for that introduction. Hello, everybody. Appreciate you joining us on this Tech Tuesday webinar, especially coming off a holiday. Hope everybody had a safe holiday and enjoyed the extra day off if you're here in the U.S. Today, we've got our guest speaker is a colleague of mine, a gentleman named Tom Spears. Tom's been with IBM for a little over 6 years. He's on the IBM Cloud Platform technical team for the national market in the Southeast region, and recently was IBM Cloud for Financial Services certified. So he's our resident expert on IBM Security and Compliance Center, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us. Any questions, drop in the Q&A and we'll be monitoring that. And without further ado, Tom.
So a couple things. So the topic today was Financial Services Cloud and this Cloud Security and Compliance Center. So the Financial Services Cloud warrants a few minutes of intro. For those of you that don't know, the Financial Services Cloud is our IBM public cloud. There is no other platform. There's no other infrastructure. It's not a special data center. There aren't extra guards. It is our public cloud. Our public cloud is that secure that if you do things, quote unquote, the right way, you have a financially stable and secure cloud. So what is the Financial Services Cloud? It's a reference architecture. So it says, use these parts this way and your outcome will be this. And that's the Financial Services Cloud. So for example, one of the reference architecture components that's mandatory is our HyperProtect crypto services, which gives us FIPS 140-2 level 4 security by applying a hardware security module dedicated to the customer, only accessible by the customer. They own and keep the keys. So should a court order show up with IBM to share that information, we can't. We can't get to it. We can't decrypt it. We can't. And if you tamper with the hardware security module, it's self-defendable. It shuts down. So those components are what make Financial Services Cloud. One of the other components is the Cloud Security and Compliance Center. Some benefits to using that, other than the fact that you will eventually be secure and compliant, is that it's much more functional to be automated in security and compliance than ever before, because there's just more security and compliance needs and regulations. So how do you keep up with that growing pace of regulation if you can't use automation? And that's what the Security Center really does for you. So the Cloud Security and Compliance Center, it gives you continuous security, and it works on-prem, IBM Cloud, the 3 other big hyperscalers. You can put components in those environments and return data to a singular compliance center set of screens and reports and understand your complete security posture across whatever those premises were. So it's not just something that works in IBM Cloud. It runs in cloud, but it works across a complete environment. There's 2 primary components to this. One is a posture management, and one is configuration governance. And posture management is, let me go and see how I look. What's happening in my environment? What is my security posture doing today? Or what is my security posture doing this afternoon as compared to this morning? Once again, it's automated, which means I don't have to schedule a quarterly audit to find out what's going in my environment. I can simply run scans and understand what's happening in damn close to real time. So now my compliance not only gets better from a more holistic compliance perspective, but also from a more frequent compliance perspective. And then configuration governance is exactly what it says. You can set up rules that when someone wants to do something in your infrastructure and deploy a package that's going to change something, you put up the guardrails. And if the package is scanned and it doesn't map to your guardrails, it's denied. And you don't have to worry about and I'll use the word rogue, a rogue programmer, but I don't mean that in a really bad way. They found some really cool open source something that they're really just dying to show somebody because they think it's the best thing in the world. But it has a security flaw in it, so you can stop things like that. So you can prevent misconfigurations and anything resulting from them, whether they're fines or just nasty stuff. So to understand how this all works, the Security and Compliance Center is a set of functionality that allows you to go and find out what's going on and then see visually how that looks. And you can see if you're getting less compliant, more compliant. And it's when it checks things, you tell it how to rate what it finds so that if it goes out and finds something that's really bad, that might show up on a report as red and have a weighted number applied to it of let's say 10. All of my data is not encrypted. Whew, that's a 10. But it may go out and find that maybe just some object storage someplace was not encrypted in flight. It is encrypted standstill, but nonetheless, so that may be a yellow and a 2. And you get a weighted average on how bad things are. So what goes out and finds out all of these parts are collectors. And they're simply a Docker image that runs on a VM somewhere. And there's 2 flavors, if you will, of collectors. And they run everywhere, again, right? Full estate. So Amazon, Google, wherever you want them to run. 2 flavors. One collector IBM actually manages for you. But to have IBM manage that for you, that collector needs to run on IBM infrastructure. So we can't manage collectors that are custom built running either on somebody's premises or in AWS. And that's the piece that actually goes out and gets your data for you and brings it back to the SCC so that you can view it, so that it can be processed against rules, all of that kind of thing. And then there's the scope. And this is that environment. So what am I scanning? Am I scanning my AWS, a single account in AWS? Or is this scan going to scan the same account across AWS, Google, and IBM because it's a specific department in my company that does things in those three different places, and I want the composite. I want to see what it looks like. So you define the scope, and the scope lets you state where to go look for what you're looking for. And I'm going to show you these things inside the console. So there's a thing called a profile. The profile is really just, as it says, it's a collection, and I have it written up there as industry controls. But if there's a custom homegrown control for some reason, it is still a control within a profile. And you can create a profile that just says my custom profile, and you can do things and check for things that might not be included in any of the industry controls. Example of a collection of industry controls, a profile is HIPAA, PCI, NIST, and the IBM Financial Services Cloud is built with NIST 800-53 consideration. So that's called a special publication, and it was a basis when Promontory, which is another IBM company, was building out all of the compliance data that I'll show you within the Financial Services Cloud. Okay, so we covered controls in talking about profiles. So I'll show you what they are so you can see how they relate. And then a goal, literally, when you see it, it's code. So it's the thing that's going to actually look at that desired state and see if it's true. It needs a true or a false. So that's what you're actually executing on the end, is that goal. And then, we have plenty of predefined profiles, and they're locked. The only people that touch those are our guys over in Promontory. But you can copy it, and you can tweak it once you copy it. Or you can start one from scratch. Or if you're completely lost, you can just get anybody in IBM, and love to help you do this stuff, because this is really the core of the story. This is a secure and compliant place in the public cloud for IBM where you can do your business. So a visual to try and help what that looks like. You can see there's several words in a control library. Might actually have 2 or 3 different things that call it something different. But nonetheless, this is NIST 853 controls. You can see there's access controls, IAM controls, there's assessment controls, and some of the controls like AC3 can be used in more than one control. So this and the goals within AC3 are actually different. So you can see how there goes from a higher level of granularity to a lower level of granularity, and you can build out what those profiles, HIPAA and NIST and PCI and all those are made up of. And when it comes to executing this, I'll say it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, even though on the slide it's a 1, 2, 6. You're going to build a collector, and credentials is really, you got to get into IAM and you got to give it permissions to go do things, and otherwise it won't run. So you're going to build a collector, and then you're going to create the profiles and the scopes. So I want this collector to look for this profile stuff within this physical space. That's what you've just done. There'll be a scan request. It'll run the scans. It'll return the data back through the collector. You'll end up with defined results from what happened, and then you're going to be able to go look at them again. So user actions 1, 2, and 6, and the system is doing everything else. And this is just a picture to show you, again, the controls, goal, parameters. This control has 2 goals with different parameters in it, and here's your defined scope. It's an IBM cloud. It's actually an account within a cloud. No, it's not. It's a resource group within an account within the IBM cloud. So you can get pretty finite in what that scope looks like. And that's it for my slides. Well, I'm going to jump over now to, if I can get out of this, I'm going to jump over to my cloud account. And I'm starting from the login page on purpose. I want to start with what is available to everybody on the planet. And you don't even have to have an account to see this stuff. So if you go to cloud.ibm.com, you're going to end up with this page, and you can simply go into the catalog. So you'll notice login. I am not signed in. This is just straight into the console. And you can come down to security, or you can search for it in the search bar. If you get to security, you'll see all the wonderful stuff we have, including HyperProtect crypto services, and then the Security and Compliance Center. And the reason I want to show this is because you can set yourself up for a trial on this, and you can go around and you can play with this stuff for free. For everybody on the call, do it. Matter of fact, look for all the free stuff in the IBM cloud and go play with it. Why not? It's got some great stuff in there. But if you're going to run an evaluation, that's the only time you pay. You can set everything up, all your compliance rules, all your goals, everything up, that's fine. You will pay when you run an evaluation, and it's 13/1000ths of a cent per evaluation. So they're not really all that expensive either. But think of a big bank, think of Citi, think of Chase, think of HSBC. They're going to be running an awful lot of these things. So having a price that's that low still generates quite a nice little sum of money. But still, compare that to FTE resources doing this on a quarterly basis, and it is an amazingly use the word cheap way of maintaining and ensuring you're compliant. Okay, so to show you guys some of these things, I am going to log in. And I am multi-factor, so I got to get that going. The dashboard, because there's things I want to show you in this dashboard. Let me make my screen. Okay, so when you bring up your dashboard, you're going to see everything in your cloud account, and everything you have access to. So this is a shared account, and you can see there's some things like usage data. I don't have access to see everything in the account. User access, I can't manage users. So this account's shared for purposes of this kind of a demo. And you'll see these lovely little pictures down the left-hand side that I can never remember what they are. So if you just click on the hamburger, you get a beautiful little description of what all those things are. And if you come down and select what you want, you also get the submenus, which is beautiful. So again, the 2 primary components of Security and Compliance Center's posture management and resource governance. So we're going to go into posture management for today. And there's all the pieces I talked about: collectors, credentials, scopes, profiles, goals, and scans. So let's go in real fast, and I'll just show you a few things that are defined in this account. There's not much we can do with the collector for a demo, but you can see we have collectors that are out here, and it tells you the status, the last contact dates, who's managing this, what kind of endpoint it's out there. And then here's one that's actually expired and still in the list. And we've got stuff going on for AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. And again, this is a demo account, so it tends to have all kinds of good stuff in it. So those are collectors. There isn't much you see. You can get a description, some details on it, and that is about it. Let's go back. I'll go through these pieces pretty fast because I want to land on profiles for you guys. Oh, look what I did. Went too far. Nope. We'll skip credentials. We'll go into, let's jump right to profiles. Okay, so remember, profiles are a collection of controls. I had them defined as industry, but they can be custom to the customer. So these profiles are the high-level organization of all the things that you want to happen during a scan. They're things that are, when all added up, are all of the things that are necessary so that you can prove your compliance to an auditor, or to an audit, or to yourselves. And we can see we have several already defined. So many of these are just the Center for Internet Security and IBM controls. We built these things because running them against the reference model on the public cloud is what proves it's the financial services cloud. It shows you the compliance that's out there. There's several versions of these, as you can see. Financial services has been working hard on this stuff, and this is all done by Promontory. So if I open up a profile and start looking at the controls, I've got all kinds of categories of controls in here, and I could sort them by category, but let's just go by control for now. And we'll pick one. Let's say access enforcement, and you can see inside this control is many, not one, but many goals to make sure that access enforcement is realized. And if you drill into the goal, you can actually see the goal, the logic, the code is here, and some information about the goal. So this is what actually is being executed and tested against what your data is that was found by the collector, compared to the rule set to see if you are compliant to it. And you can build this out any way you need. It could be a one-for-one, it could be one-to-many like this. And then you have multiple categories of this. So access control, configuration management, a little broad, but risk assessment, services acquisition. So you can build out all of the categories necessary so that when you get that, and if you look at the HIPAA documentation start to finish, it's pretty big. And by the time you get halfway through it, you forgot what page one was. So you need a way to articulate that so that you can have code run against that and find out if you're true or not. And this foundation, this architecture does that exactly for you. I'm going to go through a few of these things. We'll just scroll a little bit. So here's some custom. Somebody built these out. These are not predefined. Could have been a copy of a predefined profile and then turned into a custom profile and renamed something new. And again, you see CIS is going to be all over. Here's some Azure, some AWS, and coming with the product. These, other than the ones that you see custom in here that we put together, all these predefined are part of the product. They're there already. And anybody who has a cloud account has access. You don't have to wait or call somebody or whatever the preconceived notion is of how you get to the financial services cloud, because the financial services cloud is the public cloud. So I didn't even log on. at first, and we went and found the Security and Compliance Center. So it exists. It's there already. It's part of everybody's account. They can enable it and use it if they want to. It's already there. This is a Linux Enterprise benchmarks. There's a unique profile. Let's see what else is in here. Oh, GDPR controls. Plenty of companies with GDPR. Here's our HIPAA. So it doesn't have to be financial services. So personally, I don't think we should have called it that. I think we should have called it regulated workloads or regulated industries or something to that effect. Because it'll execute against HIPAA controls. So you can make sure you're not violating HIPAA standards. And here's our NIST control set, PCI set. So you see there's a ton of stuff already in here that you can utilize. I'm going to really fast go through goals. And here they are individually. And that's a full list of all these goals. So now I build a goal and I'm using it in a control set for a profile called stuff I'm going to check on Monday. And I realize I need to do it in a set of stuff I'm going to call stuff I have to check on Wednesday. I reuse the control. I don't have to rebuild anything. I just organize it within that structure so that I'm using the same thing over and over again. And then what does that also do for me? It makes sure that what I'm checking and the method that I'm checking it is consistent across every time I check it. So I don't have two ways of trying to accomplish the same thing and just hope that one of them's right and it's the one I'm using. So you reuse is actually a very important component of this. Okay, let's go to the dashboard. How am I doing on time? 25 after, pretty good. Okay. So this is the dashboard for the Security and Compliance Center for this account. So whatever account the person happens to be logged into. And you can see a compliance score. So again, when I mentioned earlier that some infractions are more serious than others, and you build a weighted score, and that weighted score is what determines your composite score that you see here. So this is 701 detractors. It's a status of green. I guess somebody said that if I'm better than 700, I'm green. I'm not exactly sure what the number is. You can drill into these and you can see some resource details about them. And this is an interesting scope because this is Falcon Core Banking. Okay, so this is a set of controls for within that profile for a package of banking software for Falcon. So if somebody's running Falcon core banking, then we already have the controls in place to see if they're doing it well. So if they started running it in an environment where we could deploy collectors, we could show them how well they did. Here's the last 7 days, and you can see that it got a little worse and then a little better and then a little worse and then not necessarily better because it was a lot of different validations did not occur. Up here we were doing north of 1,200 validations and down here just about 600. And the validations weren't on demand, they were recurring. So these are scheduled recurring validations. I don't have to wait for an appropriate time in my business cycle when the physical resources, the people will be available to organize a team to go do an audit or figure out how I'm going to do supplemental staffing or bring in one of the big firms. I'm running this stuff whenever I want to run it. I probably am talking to somebody about running it at maybe not the peak hour of the day, but that's a whole lot better than the peak month of the year. At least I'm running it daily and I'm getting valuable information. Okay. So here's a couple twice a days. Here's a once daily. So somebody already has this built in. They're running these things many times. There's 103 passes, 164 fails, 21 unable to perform the actual scan the collector couldn't run, and then 7 were not applicable for whatever reason. So maybe the environment changed and the test was no longer applicable. There's a total of 11 collectors. 6 of them are inactive. This is my environment, so I'd probably want to go back and find out why I have inactive collectors. If I don't need them, I want to get rid of them because it's kind of confusing to see that more than half of the ones I'm running are inactive. They're not doing anything. Um, so you can and you can see how inside each of the bars you're getting the stats for that. So in this red bar, just the red piece now, see the green numbers and the red numbers are changing. So there's 649 validations in here. The overall score caused it to be a fail, and it ran on the third. So is that Saturday, Friday, whatever? And you can see now what's going on in the dashboard. So let's anything else in here? Let's move on. Let's look into a remediation screen. So what am I going to do about the bad stuff that is out there? I have medium severity issues. If we have anything, here's some highs that need to be addressed. So I would certainly find my criticals, my highs prior to my mediums and lows, and I would go after them. And again, it's a weighted scoring. So if I fix a critical, I could go from 701 to 810, maybe. I don't know. Because I'm going after those things that potentially impact the business the most. That's the best way of, I think, of saying that. And it could be anything within that I have out there. So the weighting scheme might be, well, it probably needs to be well thought out, and depending on how you weight things, I might weight things that are of operational risk, security and things of that nature, with a little bit more lean towards high. If I was looking at compliance, because sometimes you read these compliance regs and they're just a little gray. And maybe I'll weight those a medium and see what's going on, and over time determine that's not right. I can change it. I'm going to make this a critical. I need to go after these things. We have an inventory here. So these are all the scans that have run or will run and maybe didn't run. Again, this is a demo account, and I'm not allowed to change this account. So I have to deal with what I find when I go in and start looking at it. And we already went through all of our pieces to how to configure this. And then there's governed resources. We'll look at some results here. Okay. Unfortunately, we're not going to look at results here. But we can look at rules. If there was rules. So a rule would be scan a code packet when you're doing a git merge, and make sure that it doesn't have, as I said earlier, references to open source software. Make sure it's using this routine for identity and access management. Make sure that it's not using version 5. It needs to be on version 9 now. And as the code is promoted through the CI/CD pipeline, SCC will flag those. You can flag them and stop them. You could flag them and have a message sent to somebody so they could question why that's happening. There might be an older version of a production system that needs to run version 5 instead of version 7. You may have put the rule up while you were working on updating that version on that piece of software to the latest and greatest. In which case you may then go back the other way in your posture, and you may write a rule that checks specifically within the scope that older version of software for that older version of whatever that source code was, and watch it until it gets changed to the correct version, because you know there's a known hole there that you really don't want to deal with. So I'm going to ask if there's any questions to my colleagues. Mike, is anything coming in?
I don't see any questions. Not right now. Nope.
Okay. That is basically what I was going to cover. Without questions, I'm not sure what else I could talk about, but let me just go through a couple notes that I have, recap a couple things.
Ed, is Security Compliance Center for IBM Cloud only?
Okay, so Security and Compliance Center will execute within the IBM cloud, and you can put collectors on your own premise. It doesn't have to be in the IBM cloud. You can put them on Amazon. You can put them on Google. You can put them many places. It's simply a container that executes a collector. And it will then route the data back to IBM Cloud, which is where all of SCC actually exists and executes. And the data storage within SCC is confined to three countries, three places at this time. You'll keep the data in the United States, you can keep the data in the UK, or you can keep it in the European Union. There is no other spot within IBM Cloud that we store any of those results, the scan results data at this time. So I hope that asked or answered the question that you asked. So nothing else comes in. Let me recap a couple salient points here. So right off the top, the financial services cloud is nothing more than the IBM cloud. How do I make the cloud compliant and secure to the standard of a financial services or regulated industry? I utilize the reference model that contains components such as hyperprotect crypto services, such as the SCC tooling to understand that it's in, you use secure enclaves, you're on platforms, VMware or bare metal that are absolutely secure platforms, and the tooling helps you maintain that and witness. And that's an important way of looking at it. Witness that it's compliant, because you can produce reports out of SCC that you can hand to an auditor and go, here's the evidence. You can log on to the SCC and you can run a scan and show the results immediately to an auditor. This is what's out there right now as we're talking. It's not, well, we did an audit 3 weeks ago and that was pretty good. Although we did move 9 things to production, hopefully more than 9 these days, but I'm going back to monolithic applications. We moved 9 things to production and we're still compliant. Well, did you run the scans? Did you do an audit after you moved them? Oh, well, no, the audit was done before we moved all that stuff to production. Okay, well, you better do the audit again. So here you're doing the audit daily. When I can't emphasize the word continuous enough. When I used to work with a big bank and I actually supported from the IT side the compliance department, and you know, quarterly audits, monthly audits are not uncommon. There's a ton of people that work in those departments, and they'll do a monthly audit of something, and then next month they'll do a monthly audit of something completely different. Well, wait a minute. How's that really a monthly audit? I need to audit the same thing 2 months in a row for it to be a monthly audit. Otherwise, the next time I get around to whatever I'm looking at is my frequency. So I'll do a monthly audit every year on the same thing. Here is just happening, and you can control that. And that's what makes IBM's public cloud the financial services or regulated industries cloud. I can't say enough about the ability to prove you're secure, prove you're compliant. That's what it's truly all about. This isn't about some great piece of software, or it's about being able to have an outcome in an auditor's hands, in a government agency's hands, that says, I'm good and I can prove it. And that's the value proposition in this. The components, the collector scope, profile, control, and goal. You saw the goals were written out so you can actually go in and see the actual code that's doing the comparison. There are predefined and custom profiles. You can copy a predefined profile, tweak it, make it custom. You can start from scratch. And again, Promontory, which is an IBM company, when they built this framework out for financial services cloud and for SCC, they spoke with and had constant conversations and took the input of 75 financial service regulators across 24 countries. So this isn't just something for Citi that they can use. HSBC can use it not only in Great Britain, they can use it in Hong Kong as well. It's all, 24 countries 75 regulators is probably the top of the pile. Anything after that might be a one-off here and there. That's pretty much everybody that really counts. It's built over NIST 800-53, which is, the NIST special publication for financial services. And there's a bunch of predefined profiles in there that follow the Center for Internet Security guidelines, and that really influences everybody. I think that's the single most used standard, or organizations published standard for internet across the board. You define what to monitor, so you don't have to do the whole thing every time. You can do targeted scopes so that you can monitor those things. You can determine how often to do those targeted scopes. You might do a big scope on a monthly basis, targeted scopes every day for 30 days, and then a big scope again. Almost sounds like a backup kind of a process with dailies and monthlies, but that's exactly what you're doing. You're just running a job that's going to look and compare stuff rather than copy it. So it isn't any more complex than that. Examples that I think are really valid. Object storage. I'm guessing because Amazon sells so much S3. They sell it by the bucket. It's a huge amount that people aren't paying attention to everything because it's just too much of it sold. And how many of those buckets are open to public access? You just write one simple little goal and go after it, and you check every one of your object storage buckets in no time flat, and every one of them that's open to public, you can secure it before anybody gets their paws on it. So, I mean, as far as back doors go, I mean, that's a great example there, in my opinion. And I really do think that that's about it for me. So if there are no more questions, Mike, I'm gonna give it